Today, we're going to talk about things that allow us to make complex decisions, do some things that you wouldn't ordinarily think you can do in Excel. The book talks about count if, sum if, and average if, and there's a plural to each one of these that I want to explore this morning. They do more because they're bigger, more powerful functions. And then we're going to talk about some Boolean operators and or not, and VLOOKUP, things that allow us to do stuff. All right. So on the ifs. One of the things the book talked a lot about is named ranges, and they're really quite useful, and they're easy enough to set up. You can just pick a block of cells that you want to give a name to, and then you can refer to that name in the formula instead of doing this all over again. I've got, how many do I got here? I've got 350 partial invoices. And I don't want to keep going up and down and selecting them because I'm going to be writing a lot of formulas involved in these. So I'm just going to do that Control-Shift-Down arrow trick that I showed you to select that entire column at once, except for the header. And then over here on the left, on the very left-hand side of the formula bar, you can just type a name in there. Must start with a character, and there can be any combination of letters and numbers you want after that. No spaces. And we'll just call this sweaters. And I'm going to do the same to the next 4 columns. So the next one over would be size. And then color. Amount. This becomes particularly useful when you are going to be using these column numbers over and over. It'll save you time. It'll give you a couple of other things that we'll see in a second here. Okay. So it's just that easy to name that range. So if I wanted to, like, these are the amount of different sweaters that are ordered, or different sweater shirts, whatever, order. If I just wanted to sum those up, all I could have to do here now is go equal sum. And then in parentheses, I could just type in the word amount. Like that. And it'll automatically use that named range. Okay. So if I had 3,500 rows here instead of 350 rows, this becomes even more useful. It also makes your formulas just a little easier to understand because now you can see I'm summing up amount instead of G whatever, you know, G3 to G350 or whatever. That's not very descriptive. Just does this. And lastly, because of the way it's set up, that's a absolute reference or a fixed reference. So no matter where we can move those things around and well, whoops, what did I do? I shouldn't have done that. All right, anyway, you can drag that formula around and it's still going to work on that set of cells. So that's what it gets you. All right, so count if, sum if, average if, they all work the same. Each one produces a different summary statistic. So let's just start off with a sum if. So it's equal sum if, open parentheses, and then I'm going to use this dialog box. Okay. The range and criteria. We're going to look through a certain set of, in this instance, rows from a particular column, but we don't want to sum up everything that's in that column. There's some things we want, some things we don't want. That's where the criteria comes in. So the criteria on whether a cell should be in this sum or not is going to be over here in, what did I say? Style sweater. So we can just type here style. And then in double quotes, we can type the criteria that we're looking for, sweater, like that. So that defines which rows we want to use, and then we tell it which column of numbers that we want to look through, and that would be the one that we named amount. Like that. minute, I did something wrong, I think. What did I do wrong? Let me back up a step here. Amount. All right, so I set that named range up. Let me try this again. Let's see what happened. Equals sum if criteria. That would be, the range here would be sweaters, or, oh wait, what did I call that? Let's try this again here. Called it sweaters. Okay. So in here I'd have to go equals sum if sweaters criteria is sweaters and the sum range is an amount. It's sweater, not sweaters. There we go. Okay, finally, like that. Okay. So on the invoices where they ordered a style of type sweater, that ended up being 1,275 total sweaters. Okay. We can use count if, and that would count up how many orders had sweater on it, and average if is you calculate an average. Okay. Anyway, the plural of these, count ifs, sum ifs, average ifs, simply allow you to have more criteria. So on the next one here, let's count up how many invoices came in for size XL and color green. G for green. So here we would just say equals count ifs So the first criteria range, we can do this either order. We can either do size or color. I'll start with size. So here the range would be size. And the criteria is XL. Since that's a character, I have to put that in quotes. And my second criteria, because I'm just trying to count up how many rows match certain criteria, is the color one. And the criteria here is G for green, and that has to be in quotes because it's a character. And so on. If I want more criteria, I just keep filling them in down here. You can have up to something like 25, 30 different criteria. So you can get very particular about which rows you're counting. And it says there's 26 rows, 26 invoices that match that criteria. And then average if and average ifs, they work pretty much the same way, except it's only got one criteria here. We can just use the singular. And it turns out that average if and average ifs put the parameters in a different order, so it's probably a good idea to use this dialog box unless you use them on a day-in, day-out basis because they're just different enough to mess you up. All right, anyway, the ranging criteria has to do with which cells that we want to include in the average that we're going to calculate. So here we said something goofy, like for price under $50, so we put price less than, and you just do the less than symbol, less than 50, okay? If you wanted less than or equal to, you just literally type it in that way. You go less than symbol, and greater than equal. All those work there. If it's numeric, you don't put quotes around it. If it's character, you got to put double quotes around it. And then the average range is which numbers should be part of the average that you want to calculate, and that happens to be the column that we called amount. Like that. And I made a mistake again. What am I doing wrong here this morning? Did I not? What did I do wrong here? Oh, I forgot to name that column. Huh. Okay. If you need to go back into your named ranges, it's on that formula tab. There's this name manager right here. That's what I'm calling up to bring this up, and I can see that I forgot to create one for price. Shame on me. All right. Now my formula should work here. Equals average if, open parentheses. Bring this guy up because I can't remember how to do these things. So the range criteria is price. Now that should have been my first clue. When I typed in price before, I didn't get anything here. So again, the dialog boxes help you figure out what's going wrong as you're putting the stuff in. I should have caught it earlier. Anyway, criteria is less than 50, right? And we wanted the average amount for stuff like that. So you'd say amount here, like that. And I've got a number down here, so it looks like I've got everything set up right, and so on. Okay. So that's how those work. All right. Dates are a little bit different. So here I'm just kind of how many orders came in before May 1st, 2012. I could do it this way, where I went over here and I figured out what the integer value of May 1st, 2012 was by using the date value function. And so I could just hard code that in here. And that'll work, because remember, those are just the displayed values, the stored values of that integer number. Or, you know, to save yourself all that work, you can actually just put the date string in there like that. And that works just fine. Okay. Now, in all these here, like, and this one back here, I don't necessarily have to refer to a number here. I can refer back to a cell on these things. So you can, let me jump down here for a second, and then we'll jump back up. I wanted to count up the number of small, medium, large, extra larges, right? Ordered. So I wrote my formula here, and I did this. And notice here, I just said, for my criteria, I just said whatever's in that value in that cell L18. If you don't put a Boolean operator in there, the less than greater stuff, there's an implicit or implied equal sign. So that's the same as saying the criteria would be equal to whatever the value is in cell L18. And so by doing that, I can write this formula once here, and then I can just copy it down, and I'm done, like that. Okay. So we can do stuff like that. We can refer to other cells, so we don't necessarily have to put it in there. So we could change this whenever we wanted to. Now, if you want to do that with dates, you have to do it in what seems like an odd way. You have to put the Boolean operator in quotes, and then ampersand, and then the name of the cell that you want. So that's one way. That's like referring to that cell, and then over here I just referred to that cell. It's a little quirk in how Excel works. Usually you'll just do this one, the second one here. You can just put that date right in there. So questions about these? Okay. On P1, there's some data that you're supposed to analyze, name some columns, and then use the counting of subnifs and stuff. This thing down here at the bottom, you should be able to write the thing once the top of each one of these columns and copy it down. Okay? So go ahead and start on that, and I'll come around and give help where needed.